Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Talking About Birds, the only Cardinal podcast more forgettable than Tommy Edman on a Gold Glove ballot. My name is Nate Heininger, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Ben Samorco.
Hi, everybody.
And this week we are talking about Nolan Arenado, Gold Gloves, the World Series, and some news and notes from around the league. If you have an idea for an opening joke, tweet us at Talk About Birds. Ben, we did it. We're out of spooky season.
Yeah.
We're into November. I can finally get a good night's rest.
Well, you say that, but spooky season ends, and then what does that signify generally is the end of baseball. So you get a couple more days to not be spooked, and then, that kind of overwhelming void and darkness kind of takes over. So, you have that to look forward to.
That's a good point. But I guess I embrace the darkness and I feel most comfortable in the void. So I just got to get all these spooky skeletons away from me.
um, Funny to hear you say that because I know for a fact that you have a skeleton on your front porch year round. So I don't believe you,
It's not
but
year round.
are you
It's
sure
not.
about that?
His name is Jojo, and he lives in our basement.
Yeah.
And he often sits at my drum set because it's very funny.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I actually this year, are you a spooky movie guy? Do you like the scary spooky
Do
scaries?
I feel yes, yes.
Why are you so offended?
I like yes, I'm very I would consider myself a horror fan. I seek it out. I
Okay.
go see it in theaters. I have my hard drive full of horror movies. I made a commitment to watch a bunch of horror movies this October. I feel like I'm talking to somebody I've never met before. So I'm a little
If
offended by the characterization.
how am I supposed to know any of this?
All right, fair enough. I mean, I guess I talk to you, you just don't listen is the problem, and that's
Yeah.
fine.
Well,
I
that's on
guess it
you,
doesn't
buddy.
hurt my feelings. Yeah, that's fine.
Well, I
Yes,
watched
I like
I'm
horror movies.
okay. I also don't wanna hear any more about what you store on your hard drives. I I, I'm normally not because I don't know. There's just never been a genre that I prefer, but this year I've been digging it a little bit. Molly loves
Wow.
it. Molly
Yeah,
loves it, and I will say that I am a suspense and thriller fan, but I don't really
sure.
care about, like, horror, if that makes sense.
Right.
Um,
Sure.
so there's a line there, and, I don't know, I've been enjoying it. I saw The Black Phone a couple days ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was fine. Um, I saw Barbarian, though, which I really enjoyed. I don't
Yeah,
know if you
Barbarian's great. I enjoyed Black Phone. I saw that and I saw both in theaters.
Wow.
And I like them both. I thought they were both
Yeah.
fun. I think Barbarian is might be might so it's Oscar season. I don't want to play my hand too much because there's some movies that are out right now in theaters or are coming out very soon that I think are probably going to take this place. But to date, I think Barbarian is probably my favorite movie of 2022. I thought it was just like an
Mm,
absolute blast the whole time. So much fun. I don't want to talk about it because it is the most spoilable movie of all time. Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
but I absolutely loved it. Yeah, I just thought it was so much fun. I laughed, I cried, I jumped. It was so much fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I still, like, it's not my favorite movie. I don't know what my favorite movie of 2023 or 2022 would be yet. I would not call it that, but when it comes to, like, scary movies, what Barbarian is doing is way more what I like than what, like, I don't know, your traditional horror movies
Yeah.
are
Well, I would
doing.
also probably say this has been kind of a weak year. Although I think the menu looks really good. I think Triangle of Sadness looks really good. There's that weird, ominous movie with Kate Blanchett being an orchestrator or an
Yes.
what do you call it? Oh
Conductor?
my god, conductor. Conductor that looks interesting. There's that new Martin McDonough movie that looks really good. So I think that the Oscar season, I mean, my dear boy, Oscar season is upon us.
Why, it's begun.
Yes, it has.
Um,
So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, no, think I feel confident saying that. I thought the Marvel movie. We don't really need to get into this, but the Marvel movies have been bad this year. Is my general
yeah.
opinion. I haven't seen Wakanda yet, but that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that's a further, more complicated discussion because you and I are both big Marvel fans, but, is it starting to finally run out? I don't know. How long can your genre be the most popular genre in the universe? It feels like
Yeah,
maybe 15 years for
yeah.
Marvel is, maybe when it starts to die out a little bit. I don't know, but,
And if Thor and Taika Waititi can't hit a home run, look at that, bringing it back to baseball ever so slightly,
wow.
then I don't know who can because they are good and funny and
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Good and funny and good. Hey, if you like this, we have we don't have a lot. We've still got baseball to talk about right now, but who knows what this offseason might bring. So if you've got if you want to hear other takes, let us know.
I definitely think, spoiler alert, I definitely think a baseball movie episode is going to be coming. So if you
Yeah.
have any thoughts about, I would be curious. We'll probably talk about this in the Bird Squad, but if you have any like hot takes on baseball movies, tweet at us at Talk About Birds on Twitter.
Yeah, I actually haven't seen all of the big ones that everyone always talks about. So maybe that's something we can do with the show is we'll do sort of like a watch along thing. We could talk
Yeah.
about the movies. Like I've never seen Bull Durham, and I
Oh,
know
well,
that's
you're
yeah,
stupid.
right. Yeah. This is just one little check mark in
Yeah.
that box, but
Yeah.
I mean, I watched again for the like 10 millionth time in my history, The Sandlot, and we talked about
Yeah.
that recently.
Yeah.
So, um, did you see the movie Freaky?
No.
So I watched three horror movies in the last couple of weeks: Black Phone, Barbarian,
Yeah.
and a movie called Freaky, which is the one that is a Freaky Friday situation, but Vince Vaughn and a high school girl swap.
Oh, man, that looked so bad. He's yeah, and Vince Vaughn is a serial killer, right?
Yeah, Vince Vaughn
Yeah.
is a hulking serial killer, like,
Mhm.
just
Like Michael
straight up
Myers type thing.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a slasher more than a horror film, and then he
Right.
he Freaky Fridays with, like, a teenage, like,
Yeah, yeah.
outcast girl, and,
Yeah.
yeah, it's stupid.
It
But,
looked god awful.
if you like I've always liked Vince Vaughn, and I will say that he does a really good job and I really enjoyed Vince Vaughn. And I think that if it was anyone other than just sort of a older fading comedian celebrity, then the movie would have just been awful end to end. But if you kind of like that weird, just like watching a celebrity that do something very, very wacky, like pretend to be a teenager,
Yeah.
it's kind of fun. So anyway,
Sure. Yeah.
let's talk about I guess
Re
let's talk about yeah, wait, you
I
got
just one quick little anecdote. I try to pack as many scary movies as I can in during this season, and I recently had 2 4.5 hour flights, so I watched 3 horror movies, and mostly went unscathed, and that they weren't hyper bloody or hyper sexual. But the first one I watched was the movie Men, which is from the same director that brought us. Oh my god, the movie just totally where Dom Hall Gleason and they're in the woods and there's a bunch of animatrons and they're running around naked the whole time.
Blair Witch.
Ex Machina.
Okay,
And
that was close.
the movie was good. It was called Men, and the last like 25 minutes there's this set piece, and all it is nudity and violence and blood and like live birth. And I was watching it on a 14-inch MacBook Pro, and so, like, everyone could see it in full
And you're
HD.
squealing and clapping and,
Oh,
yeah.
what but I'm so committed to the movie, I'm not gonna stop it, so I just keep watching it and, like, anyways,
So, of
we
course,
can
you lean in, unplug your headphones, turn up the volume.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, how about this? Speaking of men,
Yeah.
let's talk about one of our favorite men, Nolan Arenado.
Yes.
He is now our like undercurrent of stress for basically since the day the Cardinals acquired Nolan Arenado
Yeah.
is done. He uh, rather surprisingly opted into the contract as it was.
As it was. No
Yeah,
changes.
no changes,
Which
no notes.
this no notes. This podcast is obviously shocked on. I think we pretty much came to an agreement that we thought that he was going to stick around, but there was going to be some type of restructuring. I think
Yeah,
we even maybe said 2 years, 25 million on top of that 15 million, like erase that 15 million final deal and add another 50 over two. So we were kind of chit chatting around something like that. And I thought that that made a lot of sense. Why wouldn't he want more time? Why wouldn't he want more year? He has all the leverage. But like you said, our Katie Wu told us that he is opting in, and he didn't even take his 5 days after the World Series. He has made it official. He's told the club. The club has made a press announcement. It's
it's
happening.
done. Yeah,
It's done. And I mean, I think I have like 7,000 questions surrounding this. Like my first question is why? And I don't know. I mean, I know he just did an interview with The Athletic today, which I have yet to read, but so maybe he covers this a little bit, but I still like I
yeah,
would be hard or I'd be surprised to learn that he acknowledged the fact that he left money on the table. And I think that the only Nolan is not stupid, of course. Well, maybe he is, but not when it comes to things like this. He pays people to be smart for him. So I think he has to know to some degree that he's leaving money on the table. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is it once you've signed a $260 million contract for 8 years, is money less of a factor? Is he doing this so that the Cardinals can try to be more competitive for a longer time so that they can augment the existing um, um, roster? Like, what do you think the motivation for him to sign this? Since I think the general thought is that he could have done more, even if it was the Cardinals, even before the time frame that was set in place by
yeah.
the rules of the World Series and everything like that.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, and I'd just say first of all, like, completely shocked as well that he just straight up opted in. I'm very very excited about it, and very very happy, and I appreciate him doing it so quickly.
Yeah,
Like, how nice is that? We don't have to sweat at all. But as to why, he did make a. I haven't had a chance to see the athletic piece either, but he did do some interview with Derek Gould, or at least a little bit, where he basically said the team went out and made such a huge commitment to me. I wanted to honor that commitment to them. And I thought it was really funny too, because I guess outside of the money element, when he says like the team went out and made a huge commitment to me, it makes you think like oh man, we must have really traded like this must have been an insane trade package. And like Arenado's like, I can't believe they gave up so much for me. When in reality, it's been one of the most like lambasted trades
yeah.
in like recent memory, that people are just pissed that the Cardinals basically got him for free. And the Rockies are continuing to pay the Cardinals part of this. But I think so. What do we know? We know that he has said all along that he wants to be a Cardinal. We know
Right.
that he wanted to be a Cardinal even before he was a Cardinal. And we know that he met with Mozeliak and crew before making this decision,
Right.
and they discussed the long-term plans of the Cardinals. And I do think I get the sense, at least from the early reporting, that he's the type of guy who signs a contract for a reason. And while he may have been leaving money on the table, he feels some sort of debt to the contract that he signed,
Yeah.
which is a noble cause. It's not how most people do it these days. And I don't ever judge anyone for taking the opt-outs and whatnot in their contracts that are there. But if you remember, it was the Rockies who put those opt-outs in. He didn't even want them,
Well, there's only
or at
one.
least there was only one. Yeah. And so you get the sense from this and other comments that he's the type of guy that is, loyalty and commitment mean a lot to him. And so he obviously feels some sort of debt or some sort of obligation to honor the contract as it is. this has happened recently with the Cardinals too. Remember John Lackey's contract
Yeah.
where he if he performed at a certain level, it would
It
trigger a league
was
minimum extra
No, no, no.
year.
It was if he lost a year due to injury, which he did. I think he had a shoulder
Right.
or an elbow injury, which made him lose a year, which tacked on a final year of the contract. He had already triggered that when the Cardinals traded for him, but there was thoughts that he would basically be like, "I retire," or there's always a
Yeah.
way around that kind of thing. But like you're saying, no, he was like, "Yeah, no, that's in the contract. I signed that.
I signed
Cardinals
it.
want me. I'm here."
Yeah.
Which was,
So
I think, an underrated move by Mo, just to go back on that
yeah,
really quick. Like, that
that's
was a
yeah.
brilliant play.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that's probably a lot of it. It's just that, he's one of those dudes. He's got more money than he'll ever need. And instead of entering into some sort of contract negotiation, which we all know probably would have ended positively for him and for the Cardinals, he just is like, well, I already got a contract. I'm
Yeah.
already a mega rich person. I'm only 30 years old or 31 or whatever. And so I don't need to go through all that. I'll just opt in with the team I like with the contract that I signed in the first place.
Yeah.
I do think there is a piece to it because of meeting with Mo. I bet there is an element of increasing flexibility for the St. Louis Cardinals because we know like he above I mean all these guys are uber insane competitors, right? Like you don't make it to the majors if you're not unless you're Colby Rasmus, but like he seems above everyone that we've like really ever had on the team.
Yeah. I
He
think it's
is
like him and Yadier Molina are kind of in
yeah.
a class of their own.
And there have been people across different leagues. It happened in basketball. I think you could argue that's kind of what Bryce Harper did with the Phillies, like who are willing to take a lower AAV if it means that there's a commitment from the org to spend that money on other competitive pieces. Because ultimately, yeah, for him, I bet the difference between 260 lifetime earnings and 300 lifetime earnings is not as valuable as a World Series title
Sure.
or like a legitimate shot at a World Series title, right? So I
Well,
think that's ultimately
you can have $400 million in the world. You can't buy a ring. You know what I mean? You gotta,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. And so I think ultimately that's it, and
Yeah.
and I think there is, where this goes is what do the Cardinals do with that money? And now like this new
Yeah.
window of extending Arenado, we assume that like I guess the aging curve for Arenado is something interesting to talk about. We haven't had a player under contract to this late in their career since other than like the very recent Yachty, Pujols, and Wayno. Like
Yeah.
I'm thinking Matt Holliday, I guess, is the last one that we've like extended into their late 30s. So
I mean, Paul
it'll
Goldschmidt is gonna be 35 next year.
right, but he'll be done after the year after that, right? So
Right. Yeah,
I
he's
don't
got
know.
2
I
more
guess I
years.
feel like
Yeah.
there's a difference between like ending 38 and ending
Yeah.
36,
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, it's not a significant difference, but it'll be either way, we will see it, we will
Yeah.
see how Arenado will age and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah,
Um
I think, you said something in there of like he likes it here, which is probably weighs more than it would for most players just because he grew up in an organization that he really liked and just wouldn't compete and got alienated from. And I think he knows exactly how bad it can be. And I'm not saying that the St. Louis is the best place to play in the world, but if you go to free agency and let's say something like Freddie Freeman's situation happens, where I think if you gave Freddie truth serum, he would have bet his salary that he was going to be back with the Braves. They were just going to figure it out. But they trade for Matt Olson, they extend him. Freddie's now in LA. I'm sure he's fine, but it's just you just don't know what's going to happen in free agency. And there are big fish in the pond this year, and he would have been one of the largest ones. But when there are Aaron Judges and Trey Turners and Carlos Correa's and stuff like guys like that, who knows? Like maybe those teams that you would desire to go, they go with Trey Turner and they can't afford a Nolan Arenado, and then you're stuck there. I don't know, with the Marlins or some team, some
yeah.
franchise that you would say isn't committed to winning. So I think you're right on with that. And I also want to take a second to kind of get into the nitty gritty of like what this means. I think we may have said these numbers, but I want to go over them specifically. So he has a remaining 5 years with the Cardinals, starting next year. 144 million bucks will be owed to him. Now, where it gets really interesting is that 31.5 million of that 144 is paid by the Rockies, which is what really pushes this deal over to being one of the worst, most one-sided deals I think you can remember. And the way that that shakes out is he $16 million of his salary next year, which is like a little over 30. It kind of tears down as it goes on. 16 million bucks will be paid by the Rockies next season, and then for each year from 24 to 2026, $5 million. So not only are we getting Nolan Arenado for another 5 years, but he is at a discounted. You could say he's at a team friendly rate just at 5 years, 144, but that is made even more team friendly by the subsidizing of his salary via the Rockies. And I think it's important to note that going into next year, he will be the Rockies' second highest paid player under Chris Bryant. And that's just me wanting to be mean to the Rockies because it feels good because the Rockies are so poorly ran, and I live in Colorado. But
Well,
I
we
don't
can
know.
see that Rockies pennant you have on the wall behind you. So,
I don't think there is one. There might be. I don't know. I'm not going to turn
is
around
it?
because you're not going to
I
make me
think there
look.
is.
Um, so like, the reason I think that that is important to bring up is not just because LOL Rockies, but it brings you back to that flexibility. That means that you have Nolan for this time, and you get, I mean, $16 million paid by the Rockies. That is Adam Wainwright's salary this year. So you're basically
Yeah.
getting a free starting pitcher. Is I think a kind of a fun way to look at that. And I think you're right on. Like, how are the Cardinals going to flex that might? Are they going to commit? Is it going to be this year? What is that going to look like? I mean, all reasonable questions.
Well, there's something really interesting happening right now that is just so primed and ready for us to get excited about an off season, which happens every year and then ultimately is generally not as exciting as we want, except for like trading for Arenado or whatever. But so Arenado's contract is locked in, like you said, especially next year. A lot of it is paid for. Adam Wainwright's new contract, he has deferred $10
Yeah.
million of that. He had a lot of money coming off the books from other guys retiring or just contracts ending. And the Cardinals said in the presser last week that they expect payroll to go up. So, where is that money going? Because they're coming in already below what they were last year. And with essentially the core roster locked up, and arbitration's going to happen, but there's no case in there that's going to add a sudden, 10,
No,
$15 million
well, unfortunately, all the ARB eligible players for the Cardinals had either bad or injured years last year,
injured
which is
years, right?
annoying. But for this conversation, good.
So it seems to me like the Cardinals have cap space of somewhere from like 25 to 40 million more dollars a year,
Yeah,
depending on what they mean when they say payroll is going up.
yeah,
If they mean it's going up from where it is right now, well then okay, well
dirt away.
it could be nothing, right?
Yeah,
But if it means it's going up in the broader context to like the peaks that it's hit over the last few years, then you would assume that means that there's a pretty large chunk available to go somewhere.
yeah.
And so I don't know. I mean, then you start to speculate. Like, if that's the case, well, the only real thing that makes sense for the Cardinals to do is to, like, it's the same problem they've always had, which is like the only upgrades are elite level players. But I don't know. Is that what's happening? Are we being primed for the Cardinals to actually make a splash in free agency? Or are they
Well,
just going to leave that flexibility to go and acquire someone at the right time via trade or whatever?
And I think what it's going to be is they're more going to augment the roster in multiple ways rather than make a big splash because, like you said, it is hard to upgrade this team because of the perennial problem that you're hinting at, where it's like there's no obvious holes. There's just maybe some places that could be improved. So then I think you take a step back and you look at what are the Cardinals' biggest problems. They don't strike people out. They don't have a real catcher, and our outfield wasn't healthy at all. And that is kind of how I would tier it out. I would get some strikeouts, whether it be in the bullpen or the starting rotation. Like, do you go get I don't even know off the top of my head, not Kenley Jansen, Tommy
Well,
Kahnle, Corey Knable.
Edwin Diaz is technically a free agent, and he's only 28 years old. I know the Mets have said they are prioritizing retaining him, and they have more
Yeah.
money than anyone, but,
Edwin
just
Diaz is
saying.
really good, but I really don't want the Cardinals to back up the Brinks truck for a closer, especially
Yeah,
when you have Ryan Helsley. Um,
totally.
but I wouldn't mind like some names below that. Like if you gave me a couple of high strikeout guys in the bullpen, I think that would be really exciting. We've talked at length about some of the starters. I think that would be a great place to augment as well, especially if you're comfortable putting Mats in the bullpen, which I don't see any reason they shouldn't. Um, but then there are we've talked endlessly about catcher. We've talked a little bit about I'm definitely team get Sean Murphy or Christian Vasquez, but preferably Sean Murphy. And then there are interesting players out there like I don't know, Stephen Piscotty. No, I'm
He's
just
an
kidding.
interesting player.
I just wanted to see your reaction to that. But no, I mean, I think Brandon Nimmo is interesting. Mitch Haniger could probably be got for not that much money. Trey Mancini is an okay bat, not really a great outfielder, but I do think some thump is probably what the Cardinals are looking for, especially like I think the Cardinals believe in Tyler O'Neill, and I believe in Tyler O'Neill. But I think having somebody, even more particularly from the left side, that could start in the outfield and DH would be a huge help to the team. But I
Yeah,
am
I will tell
always
you.
ready to be underwhelmed by their
I
offseason
know.
performance.
That's why I'm trying not to get too excited, right? Because all signs point to the Cardinals being prepped to make a splash, but they are the most conservative team like in the league when it comes to free agency. Like the last biggest free agent signing was Dexter Fowler, and that went horribly. So,
Like just so
um,
bad.
yeah.
That just did
And
not
then
work
Mike
out.
Leake before that, like they
Yeah.
keep giving these like $80 million contracts to mid-level
Yeah.
players. And so
Oh,
I'm
a
ready.
name sorry, a name that I was thinking about the other day that I think, would be really interesting and a lot of fun, for the Cardinals is go give Jock Peterson a 2-year deal at, 30 million or
Yeah.
something like that.
A lot of people were calling for that last year too.
And he got injured, with the Giants, but he had a pretty solid year, and he is a platoon guy fully, but he hits bombs. He is silly, and I think he'd look
Yeah.
great in right field sometimes and DHing sometimes. I think it makes a lot of sense.
So I think what the team is missing, Ben, is fire and a competitive spirit and someone who
Aaron
just
Judge.
really no,
Oh,
no,
okay.
even more. Someone who knows,
Oh,
what
Tommy
fights
Pham.
what
Tommy
that's
Pham.
right. Yep, Tommy Pham. They know what fights are worth fighting
Yeah.
and they know how to handle themselves in a stressful situation.
What
So
from a 1 to 10, what level of shock would you be if Tommy Pham comes back to the Cardinals?
12.
12. Yeah, no, there's no chance.
There's no chance.
Uh,
There's no chance. The Tommy Pham revenge tour will not be making a stop as a member of the St. Louis Cardinals.
what do you think about Mitch Haniger while we're talking about fiery outfielders? Is that a good move? He's 31. He had a down year last year. He's been injured, but could
Yeah,
be, I don't know. He hit
I know
39 home runs in 21.
injury prone is a sticky label, and because you're basically injury prone until you're not, and you
Yeah.
can't really predict when that not phase is going to happen. And 31 is not that old. I just it's the same problem I have with all of these like outfielders that you've suggested. I think like there's a possibility that one of them is the right fit and it clicks. And Jock Peterson, I think I like the most out of all of these options that you thrown out. Side note: the Mets have stated that two of their priorities are re-signing Edwin Diaz and Brandon Nemo. So
Yeah.
unlikely Nemo gets out of New York, but um, I don't know. Of all the places that I'm ready for that I'm okay with the Cardinals sort of like rolling with it as it is actually the outfield because I also really think Jordan Walker will be a part of that outfield in 2023, and
Yeah.
I just want him to get in the bigs as quickly as possible, and I'm not ready to replace O'Neal yet, and I
Yeah.
understand you're talking more platoon and more like just other options, But if you're going out and you're signing any of those guys, like they're not signed to be fourth outfielders. I mean, maybe Peterson, you could argue, would be some sort of rotation between DH and outfield, but like the starting outfield on opening day is going to be O'Neill, Carlson, and then, a rotation of either Burleson, Yepes, or even
Yeah,
possibly Walker. And I really liked this the underlying profile that we were starting to see from Burleson. We say Yepes and also Jordan Walker.
sure.
There's not much that more that needs to be said. So like all you're doing is adding another, like, fringe in there, and maybe that's worth it. Just keep rolling the dice,
Yeah,
we didn't expect to need Corey Dickerson this year, and we didn't until he was great, and it
we
was
really did. Yeah,
he got 10 hits in a row, and he will forever have that, and we will forever have that,
yeah,
but, we also didn't have Burleson, Yepes was hurt, and Walker
yeah,
wasn't ready, so, like, those are 3 options that weren't really in play for the majority of 2022 that I'm ready to just see. So,
yeah,
like, I get it, but I would much rather that money go towards, like you said, like, some high strikeout relievers would be great because we know that after Helsley and Gallegos, there's a ton of talent, but it was constantly inconsistent. Like,
yeah.
is Hennessy's coming back or is he just done? Right. And he was like our setup man going
Right.
into 2022. So a couple high-end relievers or a Carlos Rodon or something like that, I think it just makes more sense
Yeah.
than continuing to pile into the outfield because there's going to be a whole new crop of prospects coming up too.
Right.
So
One we can move on, but I do want to throw out one other name because I think that this guy is really he just looks cardinally to me, and I just think that he is going to be a part of the conversation. Dansby Swanson. We've been talking about it a little bit in the
yeah,
bird scored. I think that we're going to have a winter of Dansby Swanson being associated with the Cardinals. And then you move Tommy back to second. Brendan Donovan wins another Gold Glove playing utility all over the place, and you let it ride. Obviously, there are
yeah,
complications with that. Mason win, yada yada yada, but just somebody else I wanted to throw out before we kind of moved on.
yeah. I'm more in favor of blocking Mason Wynn right now than I am in favor of blocking Jordan Walker. I get the sense that Walker is the as far as ready for the majors. It seems to me that like Walker's like early 2023 win is like late 2023, if not 2024, even though they've basically followed the exact same path through the
Yeah,
minors. Um, and so I've been definitely like, I think it's the least likely outcome of most of these, but I have been for the Cardinals signing one of these big shortstop free agents. My question is though, Dansby had a huge year and he's a big name. Everyone knows him. Great hair, he will probably get a big contract. And how much lower than Trey Turner will it be? Like, is if you're going to spend that sort of money, is it worth it to just go at the high end and go for Trey Turner? Like,
well,
how big of
I,
a difference do you think those contracts will be?
I think a lot. Because I'm thinking Trey Turner's like 250 to 300, and I think
Yeah,
Dansby's like 100 to 150. Because yeah, he had a big year last year, but I mean, teams aren't stupid anymore. They are, they can be. But I don't think they're going to overvalue what happened last year. Because it was really his only standout offensive performance.
that's
But that
fair.
being said, he took a big step forward on offense and defense. Maybe he could.
Yeah,
Maybe people think that's going to stick, but I do think that Trey is an MVP candidate. Dansby Swanson is a very good shortstop. It's to
yeah.
me, they're not in the same category.
That's fair. I guess I'm likely overvaluing because yeah, I know he's been inconsistent over his career, but he's also what 28. He just had a monster season. He's entering into
Yeah,
peak. Like I would be surprised if he's not asking for 200 or more.
yeah,
Whether he gets it or not, I don't know. I guess we'll
sure.
see. If
Well,
you can
I'm
get
asking for
Swanson,
200.
yeah, same. Um we have a new tier on our Patreon. It's $200 million. Um
And we'll stop. We'll
We'll
stop. That is
stop.
the
Yeah,
reward,
that's
is that we will
yeah.
stop making this.
If you wanna cancel this podcast, um, pay us $200 million.
Yeah.
What a deal. Um, so if you can get Swanson for 120 or something like that, like
Oh, that'd be
Yeah.
so sick, bro.
Uh, why? Why are you doing
I
that?
don't know, because it would be sick.
It would be sick. Cheer.
Also, we'd have a hair replacement for Bader, which I think, the fandom at large would appreciate.
We we need that. We really
Yeah,
do.
yeah,
Frankly, we deserve it. So, um, yeah, I mean, I'm for it. And then Win will find a spot because he's elite, and maybe he'll move to the outfield as well, or someone always gets hurt and he'll find
yeah.
a spot too.
Wynn
So
does seem like that guy that you could put literally anywhere, even the pitching mound, and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, he's great."
yeah, I think he is probably one of the best athletes in the Cardinal organization right now, and
Yeah,
they are just moving him into whatever is the most valuable spot. He was a pitcher and a shortstop. They shut it down to just shortstop, but I bet he could be an elite center fielder as well.
yeah,
His arm is insane.
yeah,
So put him anywhere. And that's why I think like he'll find a spot.
yeah,
Walker, it's a little more narrow, so I'm a little less like he pretty much is either corner outfield third or first, but or DH. So
yeah.
I'm less into blocking him than I am Win. Um, but yeah, I mean Dansby would be cool. Um, or just go sign Trey Turner.
Well, yeah, I would like to say that they should just go sign Trey Turner because we're talking MVP, and then we have three potential MVP candidates on the infield, and not to mention Tommy Snubman, who totally got
Yeah.
screwed in all awards this
He,
year,
yeah, he
and
really
and
did.
by this very podcast, we didn't give him enough credit for the
Well,
longest time, but
we had a "We're sorry, Tommy Edman" episode
yeah,
in the middle of the season. Then we had a "Maybe we shouldn't have been sorry, Tommy Edman" episode when he started to struggle again,
yeah,
and then we came back around to "We're sorry, Tommy Edman."
yeah,
So what a ride.
wow. I
Wow.
guess since we're off the rails, really down this shortstop conversation, I do want to hear your 2 cents on Xander the Mander Bogarts, and I think it's pretty obvious he's going to be a free agent. The Red Sox are trying to tie up Rafael Devers. I think that Xander is going to walk. What do you think? Do you sign him? What are your do you and I guess where you put him in the range in between those in Dansby and Trey?
It's tricky because I'm more confident in Xander's bat than I am Dansby because Xander has been good for a long time now,
Yeah,
but the Cardinals have prioritized infield defense, have built their pitching staff around prioritizing infield defense. And it's not that Xander has been bad at shortstop, but he definitely I actually don't have the data to back this up, so I could be wrong here, but I would be I'm pretty certain he's pretty well below like a Trey and Dansby at the shortstop position, and so I'd be worried about bringing him in and where he how he ages and where his long term position is. Uh, it'd be interesting to actually have him play second base and just have Edman play shortstop because we know Edman can play shortstop really well. But if you're looking to sign your like shortstop for the next 5, 6 years, I'd be concerned about it being Xander, even though I think
yeah.
he is one of the better bats of that list.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. Him at second base makes I could that I would be ecstatic about that. I think that would be fantastic. And yeah,
Well,
I
that's
agree.
what
He's a
everyone
great
thought
hitter.
the Red Sox. That's what everyone thought the Red Sox were going to do with
That
because they signed Trevor Story, who's a better shortstop, but
yeah,
there's some sort of weird, not even weird. We all know it happens. So like Xander is our starting shortstop. He's been there with us. He won a World Series with us. Like he's the guy. Even though we
yeah.
have a better guy, like he's the guy. And they did that and had Story play second base when
Yeah,
like the optimal lineup would have been
I'll tell you,
swapping those two.
I think Heim Bloom has done a bad job. I think like the idea that you what so essentially the timeline there happened is that he didn't blackball, that's not the right word, lowballed lowballed Xander Bogarts. I think he offered him like an $80 million extension. Xander said no. They said fine. They went out, gave Trevor Story 140 million, which may have locked up Xander, and then told Trevor that he's going to play out of position. He's going to play at a position that he's worse at, and like they like took the leader of the team, made a deal that made no sense. Like the way that must have affected the clubhouse, and I'm not saying that's on field, but like if you're trying to retain Xander Bogaerts, I just what is he doing? And now that there are reports coming out that he's lowballing Rafael Devers, who is an excellent hitter.
Yeah.
Like what? I,
I don't know.
the Red Sox over the next 3 or 4 years are going to be interesting to watch because I do not think he is doing a good job.
Well, they might be looking at the Braves and completely misunderstanding what the Braves are doing with
Yeah,
these contracts for their
yeah,
young guys. It's like, yeah, Devers has already established himself as like a near MVP caliber player. That is not the time when you go and offer the you needed to do that 2 years ago when he first came up and, had some early success. Extend him. You can't do it now.
yeah.
It's too late.
There,
And
there's
and
there's a very real chance that they lose their best two players in the next year and a half or so. And they've already lost Mookie for a dumb reason, I think, as well. Like they're becoming a shell of themselves very quickly, and it's gonna yeah. Anyways, I find it silly.
Well, speaking of other organizations falling apart, we wouldn't be a good Cardinal podcast if we didn't laugh for just a moment at the Cubs' reaction to Arenado accepting the contract.
Yeah.
Um, so
Uh,
let us all just take a moment and laugh at the pain and anguish that came from at least Cubs Twitter. Twitter may be descending into a hellhole, but at least we can see Cubs fans' agony in real time, and I had some good laughs over the weekend.
yeah, I think that was as close to a meltdown as I've seen. Just people questioning their various gods and wondering what's happening here and why the Cardinals, and it feels good.
Yep. All right, let's talk about these Gold Gloves.
Yeah,
So let's start on the high note.
I love
Arenado 10.
gold.
Ooh, I want the gold. Um, Austin Powers Gold Member,
Yeah,
underrated movie. Yeah,
underrated, bro.
underrated. The thing about the Austin Powers movies is that they're
Yeah.
all funny as long as you haven't seen any of the other Austin Powers movies within like a couple of years, because all
Hmm.
three of them are the exact same movie with the exact same
Oh,
jokes. But if you've had time in between them, they're
yeah.
funny. So,
I don't think I've
anyways,
watched an Austin Powers since high school.
well, you should watch them in reverse order.
Sounds
Start
incredible.
start with
Smoking a
Goldmember.
pancake. I remember some of the quotes. So
Of
just
course
even
you do.
quoting it right now, I feel like an idiot. Like that's so
Yeah, it's
stupid.
not. There may be no more like that is our generation's yeah, the only people that quote Austin Powers still right now are people who are exactly plus or minus like 4 years of our
Yeah.
age. It's
The
very specific.
elder
So,
millennial group. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So,
Woof.
anyway, so back on the gold. I want the gold. I love the gold.
Yeah.
Nolan Arenado, 10 in a row. I mean, what an accomplishment. Not even a question, right? I mean, I know there's some good third base
Yeah.
defense out there, but like we continue to see it every. It's one of the most fun parts about being a Cardinal fan right now is watching Arenado's defense at third every day.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
it's it is incredible. I think I think that Nolan probably likes that he gets to play in front of 3.3 million fans and that roar when he makes the play.
yeah,
And when we were kind of getting ready for the show and writing the outline and everything like that, I was thinking like this was a pretty special year. Nolan had some spectacular plays. I think just really quick, the two plays that stick out the most in my mind is the one that was the really high chopper in the Diamondbacks game, and Nolan is rushing, grabs the ball out of the air, chopped in the air 20 feet or something like that. One hands the ball and throws it. He's basically at the pitcher's mound as hard as he can at Goldschmidt. There was no accuracy to that throw at all, but Goldschmidt just made the play, and you could see Nolan was kind of jogging away from the play, just cracking up. Him and Goldie made that.
yeah,
Um, and I forget the context of this other play, but I remember the play. It was a kind of a slow roller up the third base line. Nolan dives, grabs it. There's a runner running from third to home. Kisner is playing catcher. He throws the ball kind of almost underhanded, but sidearmed. The ball basically like breaks around the runner's head, and Kisner goes up high, gets it, falls down, and gets the tag out. It's just like it's not only his range and his arm, but he will just make plays that other people don't think about making. I his
Yeah.
like I've already compared him to Yachty earlier in this episode. I do think, even though they play different positions and they're different guys and everything like that, I do think their defensive, like just the way that they can, their situational awareness. That's the word, the phrase
Yeah.
I'm looking for. Like their ability to understand who's running, what the situation is, how important the out is, where the out is, what he can do with his arm strength and his natural skills. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's just, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just great. It's a treat.
It's incredible. I think about that first play you described as well as like a real standout for me for the season. And if you remember, like a week later, that he did almost the exact
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah.
It was like a little less of a chop and just a little less dynamic than the first play, but for the most part, it was like the same thing. And
Yeah.
it's like no one does that once, let alone twice. And yeah, I mean that trio, it got a lot of fanfare when it was happening, and I think we'll remember it for a long time of uh, Arenado, Goldschmidt, and Yachty being maybe the three smartest defenders in baseball.
Yeah.
Uh, all making crazy plays together. Ton of
Yeah.
fun. And then Brendan Donovan, welcome to the club.
Wow.
Little surprising, not because of how good he was, but really just that he got it over Edman, which we'll talk about in a second. But I do want to focus on Donovan, which is, I mean, if you remember going into the season, there was a lot of talk about Brendan Donovan. Everyone loves this kid. He's just one of those guys that once you see him, you're gonna love him. He didn't break camp with the team, but Marmal was like, it won't be long before you see him, and it wasn't long before we saw him, and it wasn't long before we all fell in love with Brendan Donovan, and absolutely deserves this. So even though we might say we were surprised, and maybe like Edmund should have gotten one of these, like Donovan was fantastic, and I think this is exactly why you have that utility uh, Gold Glove, and it wouldn't surprise me if Donovan is a top contender for this award for the foreseeable future because he was great.
He was great, and I agree with what you're saying. I still think Tommy was the clear answer. I would love to hear. I think we kind of chatted about this in last week's ep, but like talking about the idea of like when you're talking about if you're defining the role of a utility player or the role of a utility Gold Glove or however you're trying to define that utility moniker, like is the fact that he played every position outside of catcher and center field, is that where the value is coming from rather than playing two positions at an extremely high level? And I think that that's
Yeah.
looking at the voting. I think that's what it came down to, because that's, I mean, clearly I don't think it's arguable that Tommy Edman is a better defender than Brendan Donovan.
No, and I think that I have to assume there was some splitting of Edmonds' votes. Some people
Yeah.
voted for him at second base, some people voted for him at utility, and everyone who voted for Donovan voted for him in the one spot that they could. So I
Yeah.
would guess that, and I assume that, I don't know if this has all been released yet, but I assume it will be, and we'll be able to see that. Like, I bet Edmund received more overall votes for Gold Glove than Brendan Donovan did, but he was split between the two spots. And
Yeah.
that'll be something that I think will start to be resolved over time as the voters get more comfortable with voting for a utility role and also all the infield positions. I think Edmund, like, if there was more of an expectation about what you do in those sorts of
Yeah.
situations, like if a guy has a primary spot, vote for him there, even if he also ends up in the utility camp. And I think it would be fair to say Edmund did have a primary spot, even if he played other places.
Yeah.
Whereas Donovan did not have a primary spot. I mean, he mostly played second, at least the most out of all of them, but he was all over the place. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and
um,
and just like, according to Fangraphs, defensive WAR, which, take that for whatever you want. Defensive metrics are squishy and not perfect, but worth noting, he was the fourth most valuable player in baseball
yeah,
defensively. So you know,
yeah,
just
he should have won.
it's
It,
yeah,
he,
that's all. I don't mean to take away from anyone else. That's just the truth.
yeah. Well, he should have won second base, and it's fine that
Yeah,
Donovan won utility,
yeah,
But it's cool for Donovan, first rookie ever for the St. Louis Cardinals to win a Gold Glove, and
hell yeah,
yeah. So, um, couple other notes that we wanted to get to before we go to the break. It's official. Yachty and Pujols have retired. It's done. They've signed the paperwork. It's
Yeah.
done. You know, there are a lot of people, a lot of questions. Yachty, everyone knew was done, but everyone kept
Yeah.
being like, Pujols, are you actually coming back? And no, he's done. He
Yeah.
signed the paperwork. Wayno has announced that this is his last year, which was
Yeah.
a little bit of a surprise because I don't think he's going to go back on it. I thought he would pitch until he's 45,
We'll
but he's
see.
I know, right? But he's saying he's done. And then Kramer Robertson and Cody Whitley were released. So quite the
Yeah.
ride for Kramer Robertson. He's been released by the Cardinals twice in this year, and Cody Whitley. It's a bummer. You know,
Yeah.
there was a point where Cody Whitley looked like the next Helsley
Yeah.
or Hicks or whatever, but it just never really clicked and came together for him. So hopefully he
No,
can find
he's
success somewhere else.
yeah, he's gonna close out like 28 games for the Angels next year or something like that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna call it
something.
now.
Yeah, yeah. So I expect we'll see more of that over the coming weeks. There's a lot of question marks around who the Cardinals will tender and non-tender. I think Alex Reyes is the big one that I'm really really anxious to see what they do with him.
Boo. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have
Um,
I don't even know if I have an opinion on that because I honestly I
I
get both
know.
sides.
I know. I just want to know what they decide to do. I kind of would support either direction. So yeah, we've of course have a lot more to talk about. We're gonna talk about the World Series and some other things happening around the league. But before we do that, we want to remind everybody that this show is supported on Patreon. If you like the show, want to support the show, we work really hard on this. It might not seem like that most of the time, but we
Don't
do,
say that.
and and we really try to bring you something good that you'll enjoy. And if you are, consider supporting us on Patreon, patreon.com/talking about birds. Subscribers at any level get access to our private bird scored. That's the Discord server where we're talking 24/7 about baseball. Hey, are you concerned about what's going to happen with Twitter and where it's going? Well, we've got an off ramp for you. Come into the bird scored. Come and
Yeah.
hang out with us. Good people talking about baseball and none of the other stuff. Well, there's sometimes other stuff, but it's even dumber than what we get into on this show. So,
Yeah,
uh,
it's just like a big group chat with a
yeah,
bunch of weirdos.
yep. So get in there. And those that are in there, shout out to the bird scored
Tweet
and
tweet.
anyone considering joining it. We really appreciate it. Otherwise, consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform. It also helps. Ben, where can people find us online?
Yeah, make sure to follow us on Twitter at Talk About Birds. Again, if you have any thoughts on baseball movies, hit us up there. Let's get that conversation going. You can follow us on Instagram at Talking About Birds. And of course, you could email us any thoughts, questions, musings, insults to talkaboutbirds at gmail.com. I will say Nate's birthday is very, very close. Actually, Nate's birthday is the day this episode comes out, isn't it? Wow. So send
Yeah.
Nate some birthday wishes, some
Wow.
smooches.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe a letter filled with a fine white powder, whatever you want to send them. Go for it.
Cocaine.
Sure. Yeah, that actually sounds better than what I was thinking.
For Nate's birthday, I hope you murder him with poison. Thank
Yeah.
you.
What are you going to be? What is it? How old?
You're asking like a Halloween. What are you gonna be for your birthday?
Yeah. What are you going to be
Probably
for
a
your birthday?
a T Rex, just like I was for Halloween.
Were you a T Rex for Halloween?
Yes,
Is that because of your short little arms?
yeah. It's the only time I feel really comfortable in my own
Okay.
body.
All
Feel
right.
like feel
Wow.
representative.
Really peeling
No,
back the onion.
I will be the big 3-5.
Oh, wow.
Yep,
Gross.
8 years old. 3 plus 5.
Ugh.
Uh, so thanks. All right, let's talk about the World Series. We just had game 3. Game 4 is tonight. And hey,
Wow.
it's been a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I
been
think
a
it's
good
been a
one for everyone
fantastic
except
one.
for Texas.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's been fantastic. I mean, the Phillies are who we thought they were. Like the pitching hasn't really showed up super well, except for game 3, where we were talking about this in the bird score. Now, I'm not the first one to say this. Somebody on Twitter said it, but Dusty Baker managed that game like it was a Tuesday game in July, which I thought was obvious and strange. The way in which he handled Lance McCullers was objectively bad. I know that there was the narrative going around about Bryce Harper reading a tell on Lance McCullers, and there was some. John Boy had a great little comparison video, and if you look, it's pretty obvious when he's throwing the bat fastball, his leg kick is a little lower and his glove is a little lower, and he's throwing anything else, they both go higher. And I am not somebody who notices things like that. And obviously John Boy made it really easy for us to see, but like, how is somebody in the Houston organization, a team that is fantastic at watching replays and video and relaying that quickly to their team in real time, how are they not picking up on their own issue there? Or how is I, and actually, I'll take a step back. Even if you're not, when your pitcher is getting rocked by the entire lineup like that, like I don't really understand what Dusty was doing.
Yeah.
Leave him out there to just like saving the bullpen in a World Series game is not really a thing, especially after a rainout game where your guys should be. The 2 days off,
Yeah.
they should be all fresh. I would love to hear more of what he was thinking there.
Yeah, I truly don't know. Is very surprising as well. He's been a manager for a long time, and actually one of the things I enjoyed about the lead up to this World Series, the press, was just how much love Dusty Baker was getting. We
Yeah,
Cardinal fans have a particular angle on Dusty Baker, which
yeah,
is always very funny. We remember him from his times with the Reds and the rivalry, and like
right,
there may be Cardinal fans out there that have a negative perspective on Dusty Baker because of those times, and that's fine. That's part of baseball and part of
yeah,
rivalry. But like taking a step back, like, objectively, Dusty Baker is one of the most important figures of the last like 50 years of
yeah,
baseball. And it's pretty incredible what he's managed to accomplish. And then unfortunately, like now, like right now, one of the narratives coming out of this is how bad Dusty Baker has been doing, which
yeah,
falls right in line with our Cardinal fan remembrance of Dusty Baker as a manager. But but that's the thing with management in high tense playoff games. I mean,
yeah,
remember Ali Marmol? We left the season and like 99% of Cardinal fans were like Ali Marmol should win Manager of the Year. 2 games against the Phillies, and you have a percentage of the fan base calling for him to be fired.
yeah,
So
yeah.
this
There
is
are
also
people talking about Ali Marmol taking Waino, Yachty, and Pujols off the field at the same time, like it's the best thing that's ever happened in the sport. And then 48
yeah.
hours after the fact, kill this guy.
Yeah.
He needs to be
Yeah,
ripped
he should
out.
be
Yeah, what are
he
we
needs to
doing?
be fired. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, obviously that like it feels like at this point it's sort of standard operating procedure in playoffs, let alone the World Series, to pull your starter like the moment shit starts to go down.
yeah,
And it it was going down immediately for
yeah.
McCullers. So yeah, it was very surprising.
Yeah, and I think to that point, like Rob Thompson, obviously new manager, first time manager. He managed like 30 or 40 games before he got here, maybe a little more than that. I think I'm being hyperbolic. But what I thought was interesting for Rob Thompson, game one, the Phillies were down. They pull out their starter, and then they bring in Jose Alvarado, arguably their best reliever, to go up against the heart of the Houston order, Jordan and their third
Bregman and
baseman,
all.
and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and Tucker, who is being called King Tuck. Did you know that? That's the nickname, King Tuck?
I'm just hearing it also. So
That's so
it's
stupid.
pretty
Oh,
yeah.
I hated it.
Eh,
I think they were wearing crowns. Why? Why?
he's the king.
Of what?
Tuck.
Okay. So I thought that was
I
pretty.
just I don't know. I don't get it either, but I
Yeah.
like it.
I liked how Rob Thompson was being aggressive and bringing in that guy in lockdown, and then the Phillies eventually came back with that crazy Real Muto home run. So I think that's really interesting. That's definitely what I'm gonna be watching tonight, going into Game 4, is like how quick is Dusty going to be, especially if the Phillies do start hitting bombs early. What is that all going to look like? But it's like, Dusty, you have the best bullpen in baseball, inarguably. Use them. Like Ryan
Right.
Stanek, we talked about this, is your worst reliever, and he'd be like a closer on half the teams in baseball. He had a 170 ERA with a billion strikeouts. Like, just go
Yeah.
use your guys. But yeah, we'll see how it plays out. Another thing I wanted to bring up about the World Series was that Aledmys Diaz. I don't know if you're watching this in real time or not, but the Aledmys Diaz
No.
hit by pitch that got pulled back. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, yeah, I was not able to watch, all of this game, but I definitely followed it after the fact.
The fact that that actually got called in a situation where it could not have mattered more, I thought was amazing. Like I think I can think of one other time where I can remember somebody getting hit intentionally and the umpire calling it rather than just allowing them to have first base.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is, at least I know I am particularly a big proponent of robot umpires, but I would say that like I don't want full replacement. I think there will always be a need for umps on the field that are humans making judgment calls. And like this is, even though it's rare, like this
Yeah,
is one of them, right?
yeah,
You need someone there to be like, "No, come back, buddy." Like, we all saw what you did there, right?
yeah.
So, yeah, I thought it was brave, and it was right, and it was
I
just.
God. All right. I don't want to touch any of that. At the end of that game, I think this has been my favorite part of the World Series so far. Was Nick Castellanos comes down and he's getting interviewed by one of the sideline reporters, and on national television, he admits that he has a really hard time staying focused in the outfield during the regular season, but he finds that it's easy to stay focused during the playoffs. He's locked in on every pitch. Um, and like, he's made 3 incredible plays in 3 weeks-ish, 2.5 weeks, somewhere around there, and, maybe this is the kind of security the big, 80,000,000 or whatever, how $100,000,000 contract gives you, where you just can say that on national TV, you already secured the
Yeah.
bag, but, like, really, guy? You're just gonna sit there and, like, and then
Also,
he
it's not like he's played, like, 100 playoff games
right,
and, like, he's that's all he can live for at this point, and he's just playing for the
yeah,
postseason, like, no, yeah, I mean, how many times has he even been in the playoffs,
he
So, yeah,
no. He
it's very
he
funny.
followed that up in another interview saying that he's like, "Oh, yeah, sometimes I'm, thinking about my wife or my kids or my mom or, something like that." I'm just like, I I, uh,
Yeah.
I cannot identify with that. I do not understand how you could be paid that much money just to kinda, like, kick the grass, but anyways, I
Think about
thought,
your mom.
yeah, at least he was being, honest in an interview. I'll take that.
Yeah. Yeah, very funny.
Yeah.
Um Yeah, there's been some good storylines already
Yeah.
in this World Series. Anything else you want to talk about before we go to the next?
Yeah, yeah. Just a couple of quick other things from the World Series. Pat Hoberg officiated a perfect game according to ump
In,
scorecard. I just
yeah,
thought that was
incredible.
amazing. That like never ever happens. And if you're not familiar with scorecard, it's this guy on Twitter who basically has an algorithm and it spits out a scorecard and it shows you how accurate a game was called. And Pat Hoberg, perfect game, 100% accuracy. I think he called 127 pitches correctly or something like that. Um,
Well, it's hard to focus in
it's
anything
hard to
other than
focus.
the in the playoffs. So
Yeah, and, who needs robot umpires when you have Pat Hoberg?
true. Just
Um,
we need okay. So we need either robots or cloning.
there we go.
So I guess I don't really care which one.
Um, and then one last thing I wanna note, Kyle Schwarber, who has a bad knee and is a big boy, was the first player to steal a base, giving America free tacos in the World Series, and I just thought that that was amazing, like,
He's putting in
I'd like
work
to
for the
think
people.
I'd like to think that, yeah, he was like, "I'm going for this taco." It wasn't about the game, he just
It's
wanted to be the
purely.
guy in the Taco Bell commercials for the next year.
I mean, this is another off or postseason of Kyle Schwarber. People loving on Kyle Schwarber. So,
How do you
uh,
not?
yeah, he's feeding the people.
Should be a Cardinal.
Yep. Um, all right. So, yeah, cool, great World Series so far. Underdogs winning, which we all enjoy. And yeah, so it'll all be done by next week.
Yeah.
So, uh, I guess go Phillies, which is something I don't want to say again for a long time.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about some more stuff going on around the league. What do you want to talk about first?
Yeah, well, kind of in line with the conversation we were just having, ball and strike challenges have been happening in the Arizona Fall League this season, or this AFL. And I think that that is probably my desired way forward. Is that the team gets X number of challenges, they can challenge balls and strikes, and if you've paid attention to the AFL this year or this season at all, it's super duper quick. So basically, you can say check it. Either the manager or the batter can say it. They check it. It's almost immediate. They send that down to the ump, and the ump corrects the call if it needs to be corrected. That would be my desired way forward. I really like the catcher, pitcher, catcher, umpire metagaming that happens. I like that Jose Trevino is highly valued because he can kind of make the system a little more malleable. And I also like that it means that like huge calls in big situations are preserved. I think it kind of is best of both worlds. So be really curious to see if that comes to the MLB anytime soon. That's my desired path forward. I think it's pretty cool how it seems to be working out in the AFL, and I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I'm a little torn on it. Just like there's kind of a mixed message to me between like you can't argue balls and strikes, but now you can challenge them. So like where's the line there? But
Yeah,
I think absolutely if this is even just like the middle ground between getting to full robots, like it seems like a clear improvement to me as well.
yeah.
So yeah.
Moving on from that, the White Sox have finally, or they've landed on a manager, Pedro Grillfoyle. Jeez,
Oof.
is going to be their new manager going forward. He's the former Royals bench coach, which is interesting because the Royals just hired a former coach from the Rays system. His name is Matt Quattaro. So that is kind of interesting. I believe all of the managerial positions are filled up. Um, and
Yeah.
it's
And no
it's
Mike
nice.
Schilt.
No Mike Schilt. It's interesting to get some new blood in it, which I think will be
Yeah.
interesting. And while I think the Royals are far away, I'm curious to see what Pedro does for the White Sox because I think that they're one of those teams that I would say they could have a huge jump next year. And I don't think the manager is
Yeah.
solely responsible, but obviously TLR wasn't doing any favors this year.
He wasn't connecting with the youth.
No. Um,
Yeah,
And last note I wanted to hit on, and then we can move on. MLB gross revenues approaching $11 billion this season, close to 2019 levels. And the only reason I wanted to bring that up is because no more belly aching from the owners. Your money's back. We were talking about the Cardinals bringing 3.3 million people in this year. Like the DeWitt should spend. People showed up. That
yeah,
is how relationship is supposed to work. And obviously that's MLB on the whole, but I'd like to see manager or owners and ownership groups kind of shut the hell up and just put good products on the field so that fans will continue to show up.
yeah, absolutely, and it should indicate like there wasn't a major problem with the game. That like the attendance wasn't dropping because of the game or because games were going too long or whatever. It was strictly the uh pandemic. That
Right.
whole thing that we dealt with. So maybe this will slow down some of the sort of hand wringing coming from Manfred and the group, but probably not. But still, it's nice to see it returning to what it was. Um,
Agreed.
yeah. So, all right. Well, that'll do it for the information section of the podcast, and now we're gonna go into the ending. We're gonna do a segment here. Been the last 10 years of Cardinals have had a lot of ups and downs, a lot of interesting moments, and a lot of key players have come through the season or come through this team. I'm interested to see how well do you remember the last 10 years of St. Louis Cardinal history and the players that led the way in another edition of Who Charted?
Oof. I'm not sure how much I remember prior to 2020. And I think my brain got wiped.
Well, we did 2019 on this same game not that long ago, and you
Yeah.
did okay.
Yeah.
But I've gotten you a couple times with who is this guy recently, so I thought I'd
Yeah.
go a little more broadly this time. So
I
y-
wept after the record.
I know it was great.
You like
Um,
that?
yeah, exert my dominance by picking players. All
That's strange.
right, so who charted? I am looking at the Fangraphs page for the last 10 years of St. Louis Cardinals.
Okay.
So that's starting with the 2013 season and going all the way through the 2022 season. 10
Wow.
years of baseball. Wow.
Wow. Wow.
Uh, we are going to be looking at top 5 in Fangraphs war on the batting category and the pitching category.
Wow.
So this is cumulative
Okay.
of the last 10 years. Who is
Yeah.
top 5? I'll let you pick what category you
Does
want to
this
do
Oh,
first.
okay. Okay. I was like, is this at bats, home runs? What?
No, I'm sorry, combined F war.
Oh, okay. So offensive and pitching, or just total F war against pitching war, or
Yes.
and pitching war. Sorry, two separate things.
Yeah, like total war for the position player and then total war
Okay.
for the pitching player. So, do you want
Okay.
to go with batting or pitching first? Like
Let's
position
start.
player or pitcher
Yeah,
first?
yeah. Let's start position player first.
Okay.
I think I don't know. This we'll see how this goes. Um, First name I got to throw out there is my best friend, Yadier Molina.
Yes. Obviously, Yachty is number 2 on this list
Who? Who?
at
Who?
24.8
Yeah,
F4 in the
24
last
point.
10 years.
Wow, wow, pretty good, pretty good.
Not bad.
Um, let's see. I'm trying to think. Like the team's kind of new right now. Um, this covers a good chunk of his years, and I'm gonna guess he's top 5 because he was so good. Give me Matthew Holiday, please.
Matt Holliday is not in the top 10.
Oh wow, I figured he would have cracked
So,
that. I know he left
tw-
in the middle of that, but I figured he would have
yeah.
made a dent.
So
Okay.
he had 480 games in that time period.
Oh, okay. That's less than I would have guessed.
Yeah, and he had 8.6 WAR. So,
Wow.
um, yeah,
All right. Well, I will go with another Matt Carpenter.
number 1 with a
Let's
bullet,
go. Let's go.
tw- 29.2 F WAR.
I think that my next guest will be Colton Wong. He had some really nice years in there.
Good guess. This was
Yeah.
one that I wasn't sure you would get. Number 4,
Yeah.
Colton Wong with
Let's go.
14.4 F WAR. I should say I
14.4.
forgot to say at the beginning, 3 strikes and you're out. So you're at
Yeah.
1 strike right now.
Okay.
But you've gotten 1, 2, and 4.
1, 2, and 4. Wowie, wowie, wee wow. Um 14.4. I mean, Goldie could be that productive that quickly. Interesting. So you said Matt Holliday had like 8 and was not in the top 10, but Colton Wong had 14. So I mean, the variance isn't that big.
Yeah, there's a bunch of
Um,
I mean, obviously you know every player on this list, but there's a
yeah,
lot of guys on here that like are all bunched up together.
yeah. Um, who else? I mean, I feel Paul Goldschmidt's so productive. I feel like he's probably on this list. I'm going to say Paul Goldschmidt.
Yep, number
Yeah,
3, Paul
yeah.
Goldschmidt, 17.9.
Man, they
So
should
it is
re-sign him.
yeah, so it is interesting. He has 528 games as a Cardinal in that
Yeah,
time period, and Matt Holliday had what I say,
480 something.
yeah, 480.
Yeah,
So, you know, for the last 10 years, Matt Holliday was on the Cardinals almost as long as Paul Goldschmidt.
yeah.
But
Um,
different ages, of
right,
course. This was Matt Holliday's like 34 to 38 years or whatever, and this was, essentially prime
right.
Goldie. So
I'm going to say I think that Harrison Bader has probably cracked that. He had a couple of really solid years.
so that's gonna be a strike,
Yeah.
but he is number 6.
Ooh,
So
okay.
you are as close as you can be while still being wrong. Harrison Bader, 12 WAR in
12
this time
war.
period.
I don't like what I'm going to guess next, but I'm just trying to think of guys who have spent time who have accrued some WAR, who have proved value. I'm guessing he's slightly more valuable than Bader. Is Paul DeYoung number 5?
Paul DeYoung is not number
Damn it.
5.
Okay.
Now your thought process is pretty good. Of the top 10, he is 4th in overall games played.
Yeah.
Um, but he has a 9.2 F4 and he is number 9.
Yeah. Damn.
So that's 3 strikes, you're
All
out.
right.
The one you were missing, surprising, but it makes sense. Tommy Edman, number 5, with 13.
Oh God. Tommy Snubman just getting it
Yep.
left
Once
and
again,
right.
we
Oh
cannot. He's forgettable, just like I said at the beginning.
man.
Yeah. So, um,
Uh,
yeah, he's at 13.2. So I'll
Yikes.
just run down the list. Top 10: Matt Carpenter, Yadier Molina, Paul Goldschmidt, Colton Wong, Tommy Edman, Harrison Bader, Nolan Arenado, Tommy Pham, Paul DeYoung, and then Tyler O'Neill.
All
Um,
right. Wow.
yep. Wow. All right, let's go on to pitching.
I got
Top
one with a
5.
bullet. Yeah, this one's
Yeah.
I think this one's easy. Give me Adam Wainwright, number 1.
Number 1,
Yeah.
26.4.
Wow.
And I will tell you, not surprising,
Yeah,
pretty big gap between him and number 2 and everyone else. So,
sure. Yeah. Let's see. Number 2, I want to say Miles, but he's been so injured, but he's been here for a minute. Um uh, hmm. Yeah, I'll say Miles.
yeah, number 5.
Yeah.
9.9 F4. So,
Wow. Wow,
almost a third as much as
that's a
Wayno.
huge gap. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that gap makes me think that Jack Flaherty is probably also in the top 5.
You are once again as close as you can be while still being wrong.
Dang
Jack
it.
Flaherty is number 6 at 8.4.
Con Flabbit.
Here's
Ooh,
something
okay.
interesting though.
Okay.
Jack Flaherty has pitched 100 less innings than Miles Michaelis.
Yeah.
But if you had asked me that, like how many innings less has Jack Flaherty pitched than Miles Michaelis, I would have probably said like 300.
Yeah.
You know, so
Huh. Well,
um,
yeah, I mean, I guess they both missed significant time.
yeah.
Um, let's I don't feel confident about this answer, but let's say Carlos Martinez.
I was wondering if you were going to get that. He's actually number 2.
Wow. Wow, that
Carlos
speaks to the
Martin.
Cardinals pitching development right there.
Well, and it also speaks a little bit to just the peak and hype of Carlos Martinez, and then like the downfall.
Yeah.
He remember he was young Pedro, like
Oh yeah.
he looked like
He was
the
the guy.
future. Yeah. So 14.9 F4. I
Wow.
mean, almost 1,000 innings.
That is not bad. Okay. 14. Wow, that's higher than I expected.
So you still need 3 and 4 from the list.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't feel good about this one either. I'm going to say Dak Hud. He's been around kind of.
No, swing and
No.
a miss.
Damn it.
He is down at number 13
Okay.
with 2.7.
Okay.
You've got one more, and I will tell you, you will be pissed if you don't get there's one guy on here that is a clear one, and then we'll see if you get the other one.
One guy that's a clear one. How
Yeah,
many strikes do I have left?
one more strike.
One more strike. And what was the year is 12 to now?
13 to
13 to
now.
now?
10 seasons.
Hmm. I've got the guys that are like closer to contemporary. I think I'm trying to think back, like who was pitching with Carmar.
Mhm.
And two
That
names
is
are coming to my
that is
head.
exactly what you should be thinking.
Yes, I have two names that are coming to my head. I don't know which one to say first though. Just to keep the listener in my along with my brain. What I'm thinking right now, and I don't want to lose this, is that Lance Lynn was very good, but wasn't there very deep into this 10-year window. And I cannot remember for the life of me how much Michael Wacha pitched in this window. Um, and I'm trying to read Nate's glasses and I can't see anything. I am going to
You son of
go.
a bitch.
Oh God. I'm going to say I'll go with Lance over Waka. Give me Lance Lynn.
So Lance Lynn was the one that I was thinking you would be pissed if you didn't
Okay.
get.
Yeah.
So yes, he's number 3
All right.
at 11.1
Okay.
at 4. 767 innings. So
Wow. Okay.
he is, but he is the only person that he had more innings than on the top 5 was Miles. Everyone else has more innings than him.
Yeah. Man, I wish we still had Lance Lynn.
Same.
Well, then my next guess has to be Waka. Waka Waka.
Ben, you got it.
Let's
Michael
go.
Wacha. Yeah, number 4, 10.8. So, yeah, you
Woo.
got all 5 of them.
All
So,
right.
you struck out on the hitters, but you got all the pitchers. So, uh, a much narrower field, but I'll give you the top 10 here.
Yeah.
You can see how quickly this starts to, fall apart. Wayno, Carmar, Lance Lynn, Waka Waka, Miles Michaelis, Jack Flaherty, Trevor Rosenthal, Giovanni Gallegos, Jaime Garcia, and
Yeah.
then Mike Leake.
Jamie Garcia, you mean?
Jamie Garcia.
Thank you.
Right under that was John Lackey, Luke
Yeah.
Weaver, Dak Hud, Shelby Miller,
Oh, My
Sungwon Oh. We're getting down into the single digit wars here.
Mike Leake did cross my mind, but in a way that made me angry.
Yeah, I mean 4.2 WAR over 330 innings, actually not bad. This was
No.
his last 2 years. He was okay. If you remember, he really struggled, and then he had a couple good seasons, and that's why the Cardinals were able to trade him.
Yeah.
To the Mariners, I think.
Mariners, and then the Mariners ended up trading him to Diamondbacks, and I think that's how they got Mitch Haniger. So there's
Yeah,
some weirdness around that. Yeah.
yeah. So, all right. Well, that was another edition of Who Charted. Pretty good. Pretty good. It's hard to
Yeah.
remember anything, let alone 10 years of baseball.
Yeah.
Uh,
I did fine, I thought.
you did fine. Yeah, sure.
Wow.
Wow. All right. So that'll do it for this episode. Thank you all, as always, for joining. Again, check out the Patreon and shout out to our patrons. We'll be back next week as we continue our descent into madness that will be this off season in these podcasts. So, yeah, we'll be back next week. We'll be watching the World Series, and we hope you all have a fantastic week. We'll see you next week. Go Cards and a little bit Phillies. Sure.
Let's go, Bryce. All right, maybe you can be professional this time.
Wow. All right, let me try. Ah!
Not surprised that is what you think professional is.
Stupid joke. All right.